Many parents view technology as one big frustration because they can only see the trouble it brings, whether it is the smartphone or internet. But technology can actually make a parent's job easier and become the bad guy when technology used to enforce a family policy. Many companies use technology to enforce corporate policies and security. Families can do this as well to enforce family IT policies in the IT challenge. This will provide some level of peace and security while creating an IT family culture. Hello everyone. Today's episode is about going over some technology that parents should be aware of that can help with parenting and enforcing their family IT policies. We'll also go over some technology such as smartphones and social media that have some troubling effects on children. We will discuss what the effects are and how to mitigate them. As parents, we can become saints by simply growing in virtue and holiness in this technology challenge. Not theoretical, but practical. Real-life Catholic advice from Practical Catholic.
Welcome to another episode of Practical Catholic with David Cease. Practical Catholic is a spiritual coaching show to help you find peace, love, and joy in family and work life. We are here each and every week to help you grow spiritually, to become successful in this life, and to be a saint for the life after.
My story begins back in 1994 when I went to the basic school for the Marines. And I always tell people the basic school is a place where they teach Marine officers how to be an officer and a gentleman, or ladies. Everything from how to eat with the right fork to how to kill someone with your pinky. So it's really interesting. It really is. But the one thing that you learn here, especially as officers, because officers are kind of like the managers of war, you know. We actually said that one time, and my instructor yelled at us because you're not managers, you're leaders. But really, we kind of are in some cases. So we learn a lot. And then one thing that we learn is this thing called the art and science of warfare. Now, the science of warfare is the actual, the machine guns, the rifles, the artillery, and all these different types of weapons that are out there, and how they work and operate, and how they're used. And so we're taught all that. What are their good points? What are their weaknesses? What are their strengths? All these things. But the best part really is the art of warfare, and that is when a military leader, uses all of those, the science of warfare, as well as the intangibles such as leadership skills and motivational skills that can win a war. And if you study warfare, the art of warfare sometimes has a little more of an edge than even the science of warfare, believe it or not. I mean, surely if the science of warfare is so overwhelming, yes, it will ultimately win. But I would say the art of warfare really has a higher ranking than the science. And a clear example of that is the Vietnam War, right? We were scientifically better than the Viet Cong guerrillas or the North Vietnamese, yet their art of warfare was a lot better. They used guerrilla warfare. They used strategic type of battles, such as the Tet Offensive of 1968. And so the art of warfare is sometimes better than the science of warfare. So it's important that the Marines learn the science of warfare so they can really use it in the art of warfare. And a good example of that is when making a defense. When we're defending, let's say, an area. The simple thing is you always want to be on the high ground. You never want to be in the low ground when you're defending an area. You want to create interlocking fires, which are machine guns and rifles that basically are positioned in a way that every inch of an area is covered by bullets. Okay. The other is the difference between indirect fire and direct fire. And making sure that your artillery rounds are marked in certain areas. You know when to shoot the rifles and machine guns because they have a maximum range. So it's not just learning the science of the weapons, but knowing how to actually combine these effects to create a defensive position. Or what if we are doing an ambush? How do you combine all of these, the science of all the warfare to create the best ambush to be most effective? Or how about an attack when you're attacking an enemy? Okay. So, this is the great things that we learn at the basic school. And I use this a lot when I am at any type of projects that I'm in, that it's not just the science of technology that matters the most. It's really, some cases, the art. And so, in a project manager, there's this saying in project management school that says, people, process, and technology. Technology is just one piece of this three-ring circus, which is people. Fundamentally, technology serves the people. We don't serve technology, but the technology serves us. The second ring of that is process, okay? So people work in a process, whether it's filling out forms, whether it's, grocery shopping, whatever that process is, there's a process. And the third leg is technology. And technology is what helps people and the process. Okay, so all three of them are important, and not one superseding the other. So today's topic we're going to talk about is the technology part. We talked about the people, which is the parenting and the children in the first series. The second one, we talked about policies, which would be more like a process. Okay, what are our process? We're going to create a village. We're going to create a policy. And then lastly is the technology. Now, one thing I want you to understand is, just like the art and science of warfare, it's great to learn all this technology, but without a policy, right, and the intention of what that policy is, we will always be, then the technology has no purpose, has no meaning to what it is. So even though we're going to go over the technology, I don't want you to think that technology just, will be on its own program. You set it up and that's what and everything works happy-dory. It isn't. The computers, I always tell people, are dumb. They're very dumb. You got to tell it what to do. And that policy that you created in the last episode will be the one, what you will try to enforce through the technology, okay? And the things that you'll be also aware of, all right? So before I begin, I want to put 3 disclaimers, okay, before we talk about this episode. The first disclaimer is, this episode is not here to make you an expert, okay? I am not here to make you an expert in IT. It's really, really important to understand that. It's just to give you an idea of what technology is out there and what can help you. But it's going to be your due diligence, okay, to go there and implement it. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy, but it is worth it. It is worth it to get it up and set it up. Setting it up is a little difficult. I'm not going to say super difficult. I can set things up in literally, in an hour or two, and we have a pretty complex system in our house. And I could I did it. We just went to a new router, and I was able to set it up in like 2 hours. So it is kind of frustrating. So keep with it. Okay. Number 2 is you still need to stay vigilant. I don't want you to think that technology is going to make you like super, super easy. It will make your life easier. It will. But again, I talked about vigilant last time in episode, the first episode of this. And it's important to understand is keep vigilant. And the third is I'm going to go over some technology. I'm going to name some names. But I am not being paid by anyone, or there's no payment that I'm getting. I'm not supporting it. It's just that these are the technology that I use. Okay? So let's go over what's the zoom out main point in today's episode, okay? The zoom out main point of this is that technology can be your friend and an asset, or it could be your worst enemy, okay? It really can. And so we are trying to make you understand that it can actually be a friend, because sometimes we look at it as our worst enemy because our kids are just glued to the iPhone, or maybe they had some bad experiences with social media or whatever. But in reality, there are some, technology can actually be your friend and help you to parent in this technology challenge, okay? So what is the zoom in main point? What we're going to zoom in is we'll be reviewing the various technology and how it can help us and hurt our children if not prepared. So we're going to go individually by a certain type of genre of technology, and then we're going to go and talk about it in a how it can help you or hurt us, and how we can or hurt our children, and how we can mitigate that. Okay. So without ado, we'll go into the first thing. And the first thing I want to re-emphasize again is policies, okay? You cannot implement technology without a policy. I implement a lot of technology in my job, and, without the policies, it's meaningless. It really is, okay? We do things called enterprise records content management, and sometimes it involves lawyers, and that's a nightmare because it's very hard to create policies when you get lawyers involved. But it really, but you need to have the policies, okay? So that you can easily configure all the technology to fit in your policy, okay? So that is the most important. Before you step anywhere, you need to create an IT policy. You and your spouse need to create that policy so that you know what to set. So if you say, our policy is to not have internet between 5 to 7, that's great. Set your router to 5 to 7. But if you don't have any policies, you don't know what the settings are. So you won't even set anything. So what's the sense on even having it? Okay. So you have to have a certain level of policy that's there. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is what I think is the most critical part of your infrastructure, and that is called the router. Okay. The router is what allows you to control what traffic, internet traffic that goes in and out of your household. Okay. So if you kind of look at it this way, typically most households use either cable modem or cable, or DSL or even satellite, whatever it is. And typically they will be used, there's usually a DSL module or a cable modem or even maybe like a satellite modem that's there. And that is the access point to the internet world, okay, to the outside world. Right after that cable modem, whatever it is, I want to use cable modem for right now, is a router, okay? The router is important because that creates a local area network in your household, okay? And that will be able, and you will be able to monitor that router. What are the things that you can do with the router, okay? First of all, you can shut down the internet access, okay? In other words, I can say with the flip of a button, I'm going to shut everyone off of the internet right now, and everyone will be off the network. Okay. I could put timers on there, and some routers are so sophisticated. And I'll mention one that we just changed over. A good friend of ours actually recommended a new router for us, and we just switched over. It's called Griffin. And so far I like it. I mean, it's a really good router. We'll talk about it a little bit more later, but I just want to talk about generically routers right now. So it allows you to do whitelist or blacklist. And what's the difference between that? Whitelist means that, I want you to shut all the internet down except for the ones I want. That's called whitelisting. So in other words, it's whitelisting is actually a negative protection, meaning I want to shut everything down. We call it a pessimistic security. In other words, pessimistic means I want everyone's bad. And so I don't want anyone to go in except for the people I will allow in the house. Okay. Blacklisting is actually an optimistic security. Optimistic here means that I'm going to allow everyone in except for these people. Okay. So it's more optimistic. It's saying, I trust everyone to come in except for these people. As opposed to whitelisting, you're pessimistic. You're saying, I don't trust anyone except for these people. Okay? So you can do that. You can have parental content control. Okay? You can see who's on the network and who's not, and you can automatically block them. Okay? You can see who's wired and who's wireless. Okay? So I'm going to use an example here, okay? So right now, I switched to a new router, as I mentioned. It's called Griffin. And it's a little different because I'm pretty technical, so I'm used to granular capabilities and those types of things. But I have to say that Griffin is kind of like, I would call it the Apple of routers, okay? Because it's you can't do a lot with it, but it's great. Sometimes the full capabilities is not the best thing that you want, especially for parents who aren't very technical, okay? And if you're like me and I'm lazy, even though I have a lot of technical skills, this thing takes a lot of work out of you. I mean, I was able to set it up. It was fairly easy. The only thing that's hard about it, honestly, is that because it recognizes devices, I don't recommend you putting 5 million devices all at one time. You would just plug in one device at a time, meaning a laptop, and then that's Johnny's laptop, and then you kind of add it in there. But the full features that this thing has is you can block them by name, block them by device. You can have granularity in what time that the internet shuts down with them. You can see people who jump on the network, okay? And everything is controlled on your iPhone. And I'll be quite frank with you, in the beginning, I was pretty annoyed about that because as an IT person, I'm used to going right to the router through, the internet on my laptop and controlling various things. But, and then after probably about 3 hours, playing around with it, I was like, this is pretty neat. So everything can be, controlled by your iPhone, and it's very, very easy to set up. And has a lot of great features to it, and it's simply controlled on your iPhone. And so, for me, I give 2 thumbs up, or at least for now. I think it's really good. I would highly recommend it. But a lot of these features you can use. Almost any router will have these features. Prior to this, we used Linksys, we used Tender Wi-Fi, we used others that are out there, right? So, but I'll tell you, the Griffin one is, I highly recommend it, or at least for now. This is 2020. It's not to say that in another year or 2 from now, there's better technology or better whatever. So just keep that in mind, okay? So the next thing that I'd like to talk about is the computer itself and how we can lock down the computer. As I mentioned in my last episode, we don't give out passwords until their late senior year, okay? So in their senior year, we'll give them the password, okay? But they can't change that password. But all the way up until then, all the way and through, including junior year, they will have to ask us to log the computer in. We lock them, okay? So there's a lot of locking software. Now, I want to do another comparison here. Apple versus PCs, okay? And I will be honest with you with this. I work with PC. I'm a very PC-oriented guy. The whole industry, business industry, is PC. But I do like Apple. So, but when we started implementing security, and I'll be quite frank with you, we converted all to Apple. Okay. There was a lot of frustrating things about PCs that Apple, didn't, that Apple could just easily eliminate. And the difference between PCs and Apple is that PCs are so you can do almost anything with them, and they have so many holes in it, like Swiss cheese. And the reason why is because it's so easy to do a lot of things with them. That's why they're so popular, because you can program this, program that, do all these things. While Apple's computers are very controlling, okay? They really are. So for someone who's like a very IT savvy person, typically don't like Apple because it is kind of controlling, as opposed to PCs. You can do almost anything that you want. But the value of that, especially with the young kids, is that it is controlling, and you can control it very easily. And so there's a lot of the features that you can do automatically through Apple, and because it's automatically already controlling, it can do these things. So what is it? You can also whitelist and blacklist on the Apple computer as well. There's a lot of parental content control. One of the neat things that we do, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, is that we do screen monitoring, okay? And it comes right out of the box from Apple, that we can actually monitor in real time what these kids are doing. And I'll explain that later. So really, you can do that. You can turn off, you can log them off. So we use a feature to automatically log them off at a certain time. This is one of the cat and mouse games we play, is like my kids sometimes, learn how to turn it off and then you turn it back on and stuff. So, you can do a lot of features within your computer to do some parental controls on it. Okay. You can do content watching. You can do, what level of content that it should be. Now, I want you to be aware, and here's one thing, is Apple and as well as PCs have the ability to say, hey, you're only going to see PG type of content or PG-17 type of content. I want you to be aware that rating, though, is standard, in the PC world, is not standard on the content that is out in the internet world. In other words, it's only if that industry. So let's say it's a pornographic site. You're really relying on that pornographic site to ensure that they rate their content. Okay. All right. So you have to make sure, so it's not like an end all or be all or anything like that. You have to make sure that you can't make sure, but just keep in mind that, they could get bad content or the PG-17, you're not going to get that on like satanic websites, right? It's really based off of either sex or violence and those types of things. And there might be some morally bad topics out there, and yet it's a free-for-all out there. So I wouldn't rely too much on that, okay? So the biggest thing that we use after, setting parental controls over what applications they can use, okay? So I'll give you an example, okay? So we use Apple, and we actually have, 3 different profiles on one PC for our children. So the first one will be their own, what we call homeschool account, okay? And it's named after them, okay? And in that one, it's pretty much locked down, and they can do what they need to do for probably about 80%, let's say 75% of what they do, okay? Because with homeschooling, a lot of it is just looking at CDs or reading or using it for typing, and we use OneNotes a lot to help out with homeschooling and stuff. But a majority of it doesn't rely on the internet. So we kind of lock it down so we know that it's fairly safe. The next profile we have, and it's a log-on account, is called Internet All Access. And in that account, they basically have free reign in there. I mean, we control what content a little bit, like what grade of content it is. But in essence, they can use the internet. They have free form. And the reason why we do that is because there's certain things that rely on full internet access, so that they can go to maybe like a distance learning course or whatever it might be. So that's what we do. Now, the neat thing here is that we can create those multiple profiles so that we can have them have that. Okay, and so when they're on internet all access, our alertness is a lot higher than if it were just their normal account. We can even, control what apps are in each one of those profiles. And I'll give you an example. Is that, one of the things that you can find backdoors on a lot is the web browser. So Google Chrome has a lot of backdoors. Okay, in fact, most of your parental controls won't work. Apple parental controls won't work under Chrome. It will work under Safari because it's an Apple product, but it won't work under Chrome. And so a lot of times these, they're great ways of being backdoors. So what we can do is we can say on their own school account, we will not allow Chrome to be used. But in their Internet All Access, they can use Chrome because at that point it really is meaningless. Or we can say, they might want to install a game. We can say, okay, this game won't be able to be used on their home account, their own, homeschool account, but it will be able to be used on their Internet All Access. Okay, so that allows them to play internet games or do whatever they want to do, and then on the or internet, apps, game apps that are there. So this is really good that in the Apple world, at least, and I think PCs also have this capabilities. You can control what apps are and what profile, and you can create multiple profiles. As we mentioned right here, we have at least the homeschool account, which is a lot more locked down, and the majority of the time that's where they're in. And then we have the Internet All Access, which allows them to have a little bit more robust capabilities both in the internet and the app world. Okay, and this is done all through the application in your own hardware on your laptop. The next thing I want to talk about is screen monitoring systems, okay? So there are a lot of what is screen monitoring? It's basically a tool that allows you to monitor what they're actually viewing as if you were looking at the computer yourselves, okay? And I break it down into two categories. The first is called real-time monitoring versus historical monitoring. So real-time monitoring might be like VNC, okay. Another one, Apple has their own product where you can actually log on to their computer and watch exactly what they're doing in real time. And it's great. We watch it. Historical, like Covenant Eyes. So one of them, a popular parental one, is called Covenant Eyes. Now, we did use Covenant Eyes at one time. But the problem with the historical were two issues. One is we never looked at it because it was historical. We were like, okay, that was problem one. The second problem was that, okay, it's historical. It's already a past done deed, okay, versus real time, which is you're seeing it happen right there, and you can make their corrections. So it doesn't matter. I mean, you can use Covenant Eyes. With us, we stopped using Covenant Eyes, and we started using actually watching them in real time what they're doing. Okay, and so we have this big monitor in front of my wife. She's like in the central command, kind of a teacher mode, and and we are able to watch exactly what the kids are doing in real time and what they're doing. And there's a lot of times where my wife catches them doing a lot of things, and we can see like, oh, okay, how do they have access to this? How do they do this? How do they do that? We might not confront them right in front of them right there, just because what you got are issues that, sometimes being quiet and kind of researching it, prevents them from counter-reacting that. So again, screen monitoring, very great tool. It's real time as opposed to historical, which is Covenant Eyes. Okay, you might want to use Covenant Eyes, like for example, if you can't always monitor where they're at. Covenant Eyes also has a really good product where you can put it on their iPhone. And so when they're out, let's say with their friends or whatever, you can see it. But again, you got to take the time to look at it. That's the real good thing. And I thought it was a little glitchy as well. But in the end, we like VNC, or not VNC, but total real time looking at what they're doing. Okay. The next is parental control software. Okay. There are a lot of parental control software out there, like NetNanny is out there. I just felt like NetNanny was falling apart to pieces. It was trying to do too much, and it just was not successful. I was never pleased with NetNanny because it just had too many holes in it. So what I defaulted to is using the operating system's parental control. In this case, we use Apple. So Apple has their own parental control capabilities, and it was a lot stronger and tighter. But again, the issue with all parental software, I don't care what it is that, with Apple at least and PCs, parental controls, it's going to be their operating system and software directly related. Okay, it can't be all things to all applications. Okay, it can only be good at certain things, and I find that Apple and PCs are the best. The ones that come with the operating systems are the best. And again, Apple is better than PCs. Because the name of the game here is how many holes can the kids find? And the kids find a lot of holes, but Apple seems to have less holes than PCs. All right. You also have parental email accounts out there. So we use a lot of parental, the email called Kmail. Okay. Kmail is just all it's doing is being an email provider for your kids, and then they just kind of send emails to copy emails, I should say, to your parent, to the one who's monitoring them. Okay, and that's good because I find I actually do read them every once in a while to see what my kids are doing. Okay, and doing that. So if to summarize this safety net, okay, we have a policy. Okay. And that policy is enforced by the various technologies. The first thing, the heart of our policies, would be your router because it has a lot of capabilities. It controls the network, okay? The second is within the laptop itself. You have parental controls that are there that can control what apps they have access to, the internet, locking the computer, and all that other stuff that's out there, okay? Then after that, you've got screen monitoring technology out there. Again, we use the Apple's real-time, monitoring software, so we can see what they're actually doing. And my wife will literally use a big monitor to see everyone. We have we used to have 6 kids, now 2 of them are in college. But now we have 4, and you can see all 4 of them. And then she unplugs it. If she has to go upstairs in the kitchen to cook something, she brings that laptop, and you can see all 4 and what they're doing and everything. It's pretty neat. And then the last thing is you got a lot of parental control software out there that will control not only the content and the apps, but also email, what kind of email that you want out there. I know there's a big debate. Should I just give them Gmail and that's it? If you do something like that, I would recommend you have access to getting into Gmail and every once in a while auditing their Gmail capabilities and those types of things. With the parent controls, we eliminate, it's funny because we got rid of Excel, or we prevent Excel on the Apple machine and the calculator software so that people don't use the calculator when they're real little. Now they use it now when they're older. And it was funny. So that's how granular you can get to all of that. Okay? So it's important to understand that there are software and technology out there that can really help you enforce this policy, okay, and help you to be vigilant, okay? So the parental controls help you control what apps are out there or not. You got screen monitoring, which helps you to be vigilant. You got Kmail that can track your emails, that can help you be vigilant out there as well. You got routers that can enforce internet time and whitelisting or blacklisting. And you got laptops that you can lock down as well as add the parental controls. Okay, so let's talk about the smartphone, okay? And I want to talk about why did we decide to wait until until high school just to give out the smartphone, okay? And it's ironic because we actually give them a dumb phone, right? One of these flip phones that barely can even text, right? And we give that to them so that they can at least be safe and call people, okay? But we don't give smartphones until the senior year. And here's the issues with the smartphone, okay? Unlike laptops, believe it or not, we give laptops to our kids when they're in 6th grade, So you're like, wow, you give a laptop in 6th grade, but why not an iPhone in 6th grade? Well, here is the 4 issues that smartphones brings that laptops can't, okay, or very difficult for it to be, all right? The first is LTE, okay? What is LTE? Well, LTE is the broadband capability of internet access, okay, anywhere at any place. So we use Verizon, which has the best coverage, it's expensive, but I have it for work. And it gives them full internet access. So you can't block it. You can't block the internet access at all. They have it inside and out. So LTE, you can't control the internet access, okay? So that's one thing to understand, okay? So they will have internet access 24/7, literally, okay, because of LTE. The second is the problem with the smartphone, it's an all-in-one. What do we mean by that? What I mean by that is it's an entertainment system, it's a phone, it's work, it's life, it's banking, it's shopping, it's all these things, it's pictures, right? So it's very hard to monitor exactly what they're using this app for, okay? Because it can be used on a multiplicity of things, okay? So it's important to understand that because, a lot of times when my older kids got the phone, I'd be like, hey, get off that phone. It's like, well, Dad, I have to do work. And I was like, oh. It's like, hey, Dad. He's like, oh, I'm doing, this or that. And really, they might be watching television or, doing, we can watch a lot of streaming type television shows and those types of things. So it's an all-in-one. And it has so many capabilities that it really is hard to manage and control, okay? The third is the portability of it, okay? I mean, laptops can be ported, yes, but it's very hard to stick a laptop in your pocket and start carrying it around, okay, and then whip it out when when you have no time. So, the portability of it it's just that you can just carry it around and bring it wherever you want, and because it's an entertainment system, because it's all these things, you can just get inundated very easily and sucked into the smartphone. Okay, and then the fourth is you've got all these apps, all these apps and capabilities that are there. So, net of it is it's very easy to be self-absorbed. Okay, because you got internet access 24/7, it's portable, and has so many capabilities. Okay, I remember a friend of mine said, I lost my brain because I lost my smartphone, right? Because the smartphone was his brain. He didn't know how to drive. It's so many things. It's a GPS. So the point I'm getting at is it has all these capabilities. And for young kids, it's very easy to be self-absorbed into that, okay? Now, as adults, hopefully, especially Gen Xers, because this technology we didn't grow up with it, we're a little bit more controlled. We can be more controlled, okay? But if you start giving these things to little kids, it's very easy to be addicted to it. So what do? You just avoid the whole bullet by saying, no, it's your senior year. Now, a lot of people ask me, do the kids argue about that? And the answer is yes, every once in a while. But because we created a culture, okay, it's not as much as you would think, okay? So, yes, they will bring it up. Johnny got his new iPhone and everything. But you know what? Kids are strong. Kids also learn how to be stronger, that they don't need to be like the crowd, okay? Like everybody else. Well, they got an iPhone and everything else. They can be independent. Believe it or not, it'll make them stronger. It won't make them weaker, okay? I want to go over Apple versus Android. I know, another comparison. I've had both, and I'm an IT person. Android, again, like the PC, has more holes than Swiss cheese, okay? So it's a very open source kind of a product, and again, there's a lot of back holes to Android. So it's easier to lock down Apple. Again, no technology is 100% perfect, but Apple, I would say, is a little bit, it's a lot more protective and has a lot less holes in it than Android, okay? So I would recommend the Apple. Now, how do we mitigate a lot of these things, okay? Now, again, the first thing that we do is, again, they're not allowed to have a phone until their senior year. But if that's not going to be your policy, which is perfectly fine, you can, have, if you want to have it younger, what I would recommend is locking down the applications, locking down maybe some time things. So Apple has the ability to limit their time on the phone and also lock it down. So, for example, even when my kids get their smartphones after their junior year, we lock it down. We lock down their web browser. The only thing we allow them to do is chat and phone. Okay. And even GPS, because here in Connecticut, you can't drive with a GPS and with an iPhone. They'll automatically lose their license. So they can't even use that. But we will lock down all of it except for those two things. So we're allowing them not to chat, which is, or text, I should say, in doing that, as well as using it as a phone. As they progress, they're going to get more and more privileges, such as web browsing and all the other stuff that goes on with it, maybe with social media accounts and those types of things. Okay, so you can lock it down, all right, so that certain apps aren't being used. Okay, I would not recommend web browsing for young kids and those types of things. Okay, so that's games lockdown, at least for Apple, the ability to download applications, because you don't want them to willy-nilly start downloading applications and those types of things. So they really just in their beginning of their senior year, they're really just using it for texting, for phone, and for taking pictures, and then maybe some other apps that might be like editing pictures and those types of things. Okay. Towards the end of their senior year, okay, about Christmas time, we'll give them more freedoms and everything else. So that's what, smartphones, they're good, but they're bad. Those 4 issues can be mitigated, okay, by a lot. So let's talk about social media. All right. Social media, and I'm going to group all the social media being like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever, TikTok, all these other things. They basically have kind of the same format. It's putting yourself out there on the internet, okay, having people like you or dislike you, okay, and it's very fluid and dynamic software. So what does that mean, So think about this, okay? You're putting yourself out, not just in the United States, which is what? I think we have about 250 million people in the United States, but you're really showing it throughout the whole world, okay? And what is there, like, 6 billion people in the whole world? Okay, yeah, you might have to take out China because, they lock their internet down. So you're basically putting, yourself out there, no matter what the social media is. I don't care if it's Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. It's out there. Now, Snapchat is more of a texting capability back and forth, but people can find you, okay? People can do it. So you have this capability of putting it out there. And the second element is the idea that people will like you or not like you, okay? Now, that could bring a lot of problems, okay? So... And then, the fourth is that at least in Facebook and Instagram, there's this term called viral. And viral means that it can go fast. That means if someone thinks that this is dumb, it can just go like crazy and hit literally millions of people. All right? It's a good thing or a bad thing. Okay? The other thing, too, is putting yourself on the internet, okay? There are, people can copy it. It will almost surely be hard to eliminate, okay? I have pictures of myself in high school that I've done dumb things. It's very easy to eliminate because people didn't, take copies of the picture. You can easily just burn it and you don't have any copies. But it's very easy to copy things over the internet, okay, and exploit you, okay? I know that there's a lot of exploitations going on with pictures of people and everything else, okay? So what does that bring, okay? So let's talk about that. What are the issues that these social media brings, right? First is bullying. It brings a lot of bullies, okay? And bullies don't have to say bad remarks, okay? Bullies can be simply just, dislike, having all these people dislike you, okay? Say negative remarks. All right. In doing that. So bullying is out there. All right. And it's very easy to bully. Why? because there's this low inhibitions when you're on the computer, okay? There's very low inhibitions because you're removed from the personal aspect, okay? You're removed from the personal aspect. So bullying becomes very easy. Predators become you are putting yourself in front of many, many, many people, okay? And I don't mean to be, a sexist here, but most of the predators are going to attack young women. That's what's going to happen. So young women are going to be the ones who are targeted, okay? So predators are out there, and they know how to say what they need to say to befriend them. There's a lot of commercials out there about how, people can imitate and pretend that they're something, and then eventually they're really nothing more than child predators or predators of other things. Self-esteem, okay? The social media, in essence, is a fake world. It's a virtual world, and it's fake, okay? Not to say that, what are you going to put in on your social media? I don't care if it's Instagram or Facebook. Chances are you're going to put good pictures of who you are, okay? And like everyone, we probably have our good days and we have our bad days. But they're going to make sure that only the good pictures are up there, okay? And that's your best case scenario, right? Your worst case scenario is they truly are fake. They're really not who they are, okay? So because of that, there is loss of self-esteem. They really don't know who they are, okay? They might be chasing after likes, okay? I only got 2 likes, or maybe, I got a like, all right? So this is it's a fake world in the social media aspect of it, okay? All right, so how do we mitigate some of this social media aspect of it? Again, there's a couple of ways. In our family, if before they're in high school, a senior in high school, if they want an Instagram account or a Facebook account, we have to create it, and we actually control it. Okay, they don't control it, we do. So I'll give you an example. A lot of times some of these games are, they require a Facebook account or something, right? Because Facebook right now is getting into games. You're going to see that trend. And so I created an account so that they could get the game. I own it. I control it. This is what it is. Okay. And then, I become the controller. Another one was like Instagram. So, some of the kids, want to show like a music of an Instagram. Well, again, we control it and what's going on, or our friends might control it, but we know that a parent is controlling that Instagram account and it's not personally theirs. So but when they become a senior, they're able to open up their own Instagram account, and we're the first person to like it and be associated with it. Okay. Now, it's not to say that when they get older, they can't open up their own to hide whatever they want to do. But at least with the first one they have is we're friends with them and we're connected. So you open up the account for them. Okay. Again, if you want to do it at an earlier age, that's fine. But you should be the one that opens that account. You should be the one that controls that account, or at least monitor that account by being their friend or friending them. And you can do that because you're opening up the account and you just friend them, and then they, friend you back, and now you have that connection. Okay. So that's what you do. You don't want them to open it up. Okay. We make it into like a little hey, this is great. Let's open up an account, Facebook. They're all excited. And it's like, I'm going to friend you. You're going to friend me back, So you kind of have that conversation that's going in there. All right. Maybe you emphasize more of a communal social media account before they're high school years. So it doesn't, social media doesn't have to be a one-on-one. It could be, a communal one. Maybe I have a family YouTube account, right? where we go there and sometimes we'll buy, a movie or two to watch it. And then I keep all of that historically into our family YouTube. Sometimes I want to share a YouTube video of our kids, and we'll put it in the family YouTube, which is blocked with other people, and then we send it out to our aunts and uncles and stuff like that. And so it becomes a communal type of a YouTube account. It's not controlled by, it's not owned by one person. So there's a lot of things you can do with social media, but try to understand that in essence anything in social media, I don't care if it's YouTube or, Instagram, Facebook, you're putting yourself out there. And, the thing about it is every business that's out there, and I tell this to my kids, okay, that you got to be careful in what you put on the Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media it is, because the first thing that most corporate companies do is they Google you and check your social media accounts. That's what they do. It's very easy, right? And if you're going around and doing crazy things, hey, I just went to Florida and drank, 10, beers in like in 1 hour, they're going to have serious doubts about you. They're going to have some serious, questions about your judgment. Okay, so you got to be very, very careful about that. Okay, so social media. Very, very important to understand. So how do we kind of create this comprehensive IT setup? Well, first, I keep saying policies. Get your policies up and running. Set up your router, okay? Set up your laptops. Set up any of your parental controls that are in there. Set up your screen monitoring software, okay? Have your kind of email capabilities, whether you're going to use Kmail or some other monitoring email capabilities. And then when it comes to social media and for the phone, determine a good age in which, they should be able to have that. We're homeschooled, so most of our, community, they don't really get an iPhone until like junior, senior year. I only know maybe one or two families that got it before that, but I would say most of them are at a very early, later age, and those types of things. So you look at that. Social media also wait until a later age so that they have their own account at a later age. If they want it earlier, try to create a communal type of social media. Try to, or at least control that social media account so that they don't have access, that they're not posting things kind of willy-nilly, that you kind of, help them along and say, yeah, maybe you want this, maybe, because they might not know all of the nuances of like what's private, what's not private, and all that other stuff that's out there. So you want to be able to help them along and do that, okay? Also with social media is you can, make sure that it's more of a, the content is appropriate, and mention to them that what's good content and what's not good content. And then there's a good way of also having a conversation with them to say, hey, you've got to be worried about child bullying, predators, and everything else. Because kids are innocent. They really, really are innocent. And they might not be aware that there are bad people out there who will say nice things to you on social media or like you. And they're just doing that as a ploy, okay? And doing that. So the last thing, and I want to re-emphasize this again, be vigilant. It's great that you have all of this technology to help you out, but at the end of the day, technology changes. Children are sometimes tech savvy, and they can find holes in your system. And so you always have to be vigilant, okay? And, go by your gut feeling on what's going on. So, in conclusion, technology, it can be a great asset and can help out. We see that in the business world. We can incorporate that in our family life to make our job easier, to secure our kids' innocence so that they can be slowly introduced to the more advanced type of technology. Technology has to be age appropriate, just like movies is age appropriate, so that they can be kind of strengthened and be more aware of what's going out there. We, as parents, our primary responsibility is our children. And so we become saints and we grow in virtue in the challenge that technology brings. And by doing that, we will build virtue and become a saint. Let's end it with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord Jesus, help us in this technology challenge that we are confronting. As technology advances faster, you are the master of time and of space and of all things. Help us to realize that we must do our part to keep our children innocent and loving. And you will give us the grace to do that, to build virtue and love. As we pray, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Thanks for listening to me, David Cease, at Practical Catholic. Please share this podcast to others, especially if they have benefited you. Also, feel free to share any reflections or leave a comment on the podcast, Instagram, and Facebook at Practical Catholic, or visit my webpage at practicalcatholic1, that is the number 1.com.
You're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.